Do. Hey, Jaden. Hello, hello. Hello, Penguin. Do. Okay, I think I should probably go get myself some tea and then we can start. I should update also my list of to dos now. So let's do it like this. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'll be right back. Hi, Loris. Is it okay to ask a question kind of related to Zine, but unrelated to Zig's async IO? Sure, of course, certainly, for sure. Anything, you know, questions don't have to be necessarily related to async IO, for sure. And if you have a question about one of my projects, even more so, feel free. Okay, I'm gonna go get the tea up. I'll be back in a couple of minutes. I'll be happy to read your question if you will have sent it and answer it then. Be right back. Okay, I'm back. Doo-doo-doo. Okay. So what are we doing today? As I was saying earlier, I know that we have this async work to do, which I will get to, but I want to do just a little bit more work on Ziggy because yesterday I started working on something that is genuinely useful. So I remember that I actually regressed one thing compared to the old Ziggy LSP. The old Ziggy LSP did support super MD files. So you were able to get you're able to get LSP support, which I am in the process of introducing, except that, well, as you can see here, Helix is hanging because the LSP is hanging, and it's gonna quit in a bit. I think this timeout is way, 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 way too high. Like, if your LSP is taking this long to process a fucking request, like, just kill it already. Even, like, delete the executable at that point. If that is, like, a legitimate delay for processing stuff, not like, if it's hanging like here, like there's a bug, fine. But, like, if your LSP is designed to work that way, Jesus Christ. So here you can see basically that I'm in a Super Markdown, Super MD document, and yeah, we have code intelligence for our Ziggy thing, including auto formatting, which is delightful. So you know, I can do this, and I can do this, and it all works. It's really beautiful. So, what is the next step? Well, the next step is actually fix bugs, because put the wrong letter in the wrong place and the server dies. It actually earlier was not really hanging. I think it was just dying in a loop, and Helix doesn't handle that well, maybe. In any case, we need to fix this. So, okay, this can be closed. This is our task case. This is a tab where we can build. By the way, this stack trace is out of whack because I changed source code since I built it last, so it's pointing at garbage. There we go. Now we got a proper stack trace, and we are indexing into this guy, but it turns out that the thing is 0. So what is the problem here? The problem is that we fail to, the syntax is wrong. Straight up syntax is wrong, and so things go south. We need to fix this. I was debating on whether to have the Ziggy parser parse the opening delimiter or not. I originally said no. Then yesterday, as I was implementing this, I said, you know what, let's see what happens if we do use this if we do have the Ziggy parser parse the opening token. Since we do have to recognize the closing token, why not recognize the opening token? Turns out, yeah, no, that doesn't work well. So I now know what I want the interface to look like. So we're gonna do it here, and here's how it's gonna look like. AST. In init, you give me options, and those options have the limiter being being this. except that we cannot do this. We cannot do this. So here's what we're gonna do instead. Make this a union. And this union was gonna have dot none. Or it's gonna have none, and then it's gonna have dashes. And dashes is gonna be U32. Let's see, set to true when parsing as informator. No. When parsing a super indie formatter, set to dashes. Know that it's up to you to ensure that the opening dashes are present. Byte offset. Yeah. So long story short, we don't. I'm reverting back to my original idea where we don't do this, but we expect the outside to do this. It's really the only sane way of making this happen. I did try the other way around. It just does not work. So yeah. So that means that we create a root node unconditionally. We leave end to undefined, but start is based on switch. What we switch on either options dot delimiter 0 dashes there we go. Hey, Neurside. Hello. By the way, Neurside, maybe you don't care, but just saying, I'm been working hard on making Ziggy significantly better than it was before. Like I basically brought in all the things that I learned in like the last year or something. So better parser, better AST parser, better deserializer. Well, the serializer was already fine as it was, so that didn't change too much. But like all around, better tech around this stuff. And I now have a delicious way of pairing Ziggy documents to Ziggy schemas. So I don't know, just putting this out there, just so that you know. Right now, I'm working on basically reintroducing Super Markdown support so that the LSP and the tooling can help you with zine content pages, pretty much. But the whole story around Ziggy, I think, is so much more solid than it was before. So a while ago, I attempted this thing where I tried to use Ziggy to encode the config options of Ghosty, and it was a bit of a shit show in the sense that the features that I chose, the feature set that I chose for Ziggy was a poor fit for what Ghosty needed to do, and I think I'm going to reattempt now, and I think it's going to be pretty good. Although this is like I'm going to say, I'm doing this for me. I mean, I wouldn't hate if other people were to adopt Ziggy as a config language, but in the case of Ghosty specifically, this is really just for me. That said, I think it's getting to a point where other people can get some mileage out of this, even though I do get it. It's a JSON replacement language. It's kind of a hard sell. I get it. Yes, please. Ziggy and Ziggy schema. So the Ziggy languages. I also pushed a fix yesterday. You know what? The fact that you haven't done it yet is actually good because I noticed that there was a silly bug in the three-seater grammar that I fixed only yesterday. So yeah, now it's a good time. If you do, thank you very much. Let's see. My question was too large, so I was working out to shorten it. Jesus. Okay. I mean, if it's too long because they don't allow you to paste it in chat, paste it in some kind of website. There we have zigbean.io, for example. Zigbean.io, where you can paste. Well, this is generally for Zig code, but it doesn't have to be necessarily Zig code. Hey, crypto code. Hello. So, I mean, I don't know. As long as it's not like an entire book, I'm fine with a question that is a little bit longer than what chat applications allow you to say. Okay, so dashes are given to us. Append a root node whose start is either 0 or offset. We assume that everything is fine. We don't do anything about it otherwise. So, okay, so if this is how this works, fuck, now I just realized that I regressed like 6 test cases. Also, wait, are those are test cases? Wait a second. Those are test cases that I never uncommented. Okay, we'll get to that. First, we need to fix diagnostics because those things are busted right now. I have a bunch of markdown, well, super markdown related test cases, and I need to fix those first. Okay, so this one. So the procedure is basically that when we say the limiter equals dashes, this is now the limiter dashes equals, we can say 3, we can say 4. I think we should say 3. Okay, this is actually not too bad. As a fix, this is pretty easy. Let's see how we're doing with regards to Zig build test watch. Let's see how we're doing with regards to testing. Missing start field delimiter 3244. Oh, to do, we need to give it a default value, of course. Oh, these are the serializer options. Oh, Jesus. Okay. Um, right. This guy has its own options. Uh, but this stems from AST. Okay, we need to fix AST first. There's a thing that I need to fix in here. Simple. We need to give it a default value. So this union has as default value none. There you go. You should make it better. Tokenizer.delimiter does not support that. Yes. So you know what? The fact that I make this a union, at this point, I think this needs to go in tokenizer. There is no function in it. Oh, fuck. Well, we need to give it init. Gotta do it. Okay, so the tokenizer does this now. That actually means that I can restore also the other cases that I commented out. Although they're kind of cringe the way they were implemented. This one, no, though. I'm gonna restore this one. Backticks. Why 32 and not size U16? Do you think people need more than 64K dashes? Well, dashes is the offset where the dashes are present. So there will always be 3 dashes. That's what we expect to find, not more than those. So it's not counting dashes. It's the byte offset at which the 3 dashes end, pretty much. But, well, the thing is, how much data could there be before the dashes? In the case of dashes, so in the case of Markdown or SuperMD, the answer is there should be nothing or maybe some white space. Although I noticed that Markdown tooling does not expect white space before the 3 dashes. If it sees white space, it assumes that there is no front matter. That said, that might be a quirk of Markdown tooling, so whatever. But for example, there's also backticks. We support the idea of parsing Ziggy inside of triple backticks. Where are those triple, like a code block? Well, where are those going to be located? We don't know. They could be very deep into a document. The only thing that we enforce is that whatever document they're located in, it has to be smaller than 4 gigabytes. So anything that we do in this ecosystem is capped at 4 gigabytes, which is reasonable. If we were to turn this down to U16, then we would make it a significantly smaller. Oh, sorry, Nurul. You tried to post a link, didn't you? Oh, yeah. Yeah, sorry. I think that YouTube doesn't like links or something. So what is it? U16. Is U16 capped at 64K? No, U16 is more than that, right? What is max of U16? I should know this by heart, but I don't. Oh, no, you're right. It's 64K. Oh man, that's no, that is a little bit too restrictive for documents, I think. Like even just I don't know, you do the silly thing of inlining one SVG file in a content file, and you can easily get over this limit. Okay, shorter version. I'm building ZX. Oh, like Zine. Static site generator? Integrating with the Super HTML parser. Okay. Oh, damn. I wish I had line wrapping. Oh, you know what? I can copy contents. Wait, there was a button telling me what to do in yellow. Okay, so is it a good idea or is it writing my own better? I'll also use the LSP for the HTML part. Longer version. I've been working on building a similar project like Zine where it's kind of HTML you can have within Zig, which then is being transpiled to Zig. Oh wait, wait. That's the. I think I saw it. I didn't recognize the domain, but I think I saw it. It's the Zig JSX, right? Was it dev? Yeah. Okay. So it's a templating language basically. Okay, so what's your question? So so based on that, I wouldn't say the ZX is like Zine. I would say is like Super HTML, right? It's a templating language that builds on top of Zig. In my case, I just build on top of HTML directly. But sure. Okay, so currently I have a prototype where I just use Zig's tokenizer to go through the tokens and figure out the HTML part. However, for the actual implementation, I'm thinking of using the Super HTML parser from you. I love that work, by the way. Thank you. To parse when the segment is HTML within Zig. So the question is that a good idea to try using both Super HTML and Zig's parser together, or just write my own parser? Ooh. Um, it's a tough question. Yeah, it's a tough question. Uh, it's a very tough question. Hmm. Hmm. Okay, so if I were you, here's what I would do. Um, you definitely cannot use Super HTML as it is. You need to fork it and you need to change it. You have syntax that is specific to your language that doesn't that is not recognized by Super HTML. You could have multiple passes. I'll give you one example here, right? See, here with Super HTML, we would parse section. We would maybe, maybe you need to tweak it a little bit, but the attributes would get recognized. The curly braces around an attribute value, that is another breaking change from HTML. In HTML, there is no concept of using curlies for delimiting an attribute value, but you could add that. But that already is you're in fork territory. But then you have this thing where you have these output variables here, right? I'm guessing these double curly means, wait, is it double curly? No, it's a curly in a square bracket. Interesting. But I'm guessing it's some kind of output variable. So that, again, you could do that as a second pass, but it kind of feels like it wants to be its own parser. Here's, and lastly, Super HTML is maniacal about validating correct HTML structure in a way that is problematic with templating languages because there are dynamicism in templating languages, which I have not even started designing support for. Or rather, Super HTML can be a templating language, but if you haven't seen it, right now, all validation is turned off when you use it. When you use the Super HTML templating language, all the fancy HTML validation, it all gets like the nesting stuff, the attribute validation, that all gets turned off because it needs more. It needs the concept of not being able to evaluate some rules because they depend on runtime information. This is a concept that currently doesn't exist in that part of the validation logic. So here's my suggestion. I think that you probably want to make your own parser. I think that your parser doesn't have to worry about being maniacally spec compliant with HTML. You can get away with not having that. And then what you do is you run Super HTML on the output. You run it on this guy. This is where you can run Super HTML today as is, no change needed whatsoever. And in your tool, you can have like a final step that tries to catch errors, and if it sees that a given snippet produces syntax errors, produces errors from SuperHTML, then you tell the user. This you can do today, no change necessary to SuperHTML, and you get everything that's good in HTML, like right off the bat, super useful to you. But trying to integrate at this level, which is a goal, like it's a worthwhile goal. I would agree. Like my goal for the Super HTML templating language itself is to eventually being able to do evaluation at this stage before it has been fully evaluated. I myself don't know how to get there yet. I'll need some time before I can do that. But you can definitely run it on the output without a doubt. And the nice thing is that you can do it snippet by snippet, meaning that as you compute this, well, I don't know how your processing pipeline looks like, but if you compute this like in isolation, you can have Super HTML validate this. It will work. You don't have to do any weird trick to make this kind of stuff work. Or I don't know, maybe there's some caveats, but like in general, it will work. As for the language server specifically, as for the language server, well, if you write your own parser, then there's not much that you need from Super HTML, other than maybe, copy some techniques that I used on, techniques on how to provide auto suggestions, how to provide auto completion, how to match a cursor position to a particular node in the AST, that kind of stuff. And more in general, I would say that more than anything, the one thing that you want to quote unquote copy is not Super HTML, but rather it's GitHub, Zig Tools, LSP Kit. You want to copy LSP Kit, or rather, you as well want to use LSP Kit, which is the basically bindings to the language server protocol that ZLS uses, that I used, and that are like really, really good. So that would be I would consider that the starting point for you. But then if you make your own parser, maybe there's some things that you can take inspiration from Super HTML, but not much code sharing directly. Yeah. I was working on doing it using multiple passes. So I first take ZX, take out HTML. From the HTML, I take out expressions, replace it with a placeholder, and then passing them to Super HTML. It was tedious. Yeah. It's tedious, and also it's still incomplete, because even if you put placeholders, there are some validation rules that are based on attribute values. So until you know what the attribute value is, you don't know if the thing is going to be complete or not. So do it after the fact. Like run Super HTML after the fact. You're not going to regret it. There will be potentially some performance implications. Maybe, I don't know, but it works. It works beautifully. It's going to be fast enough, so you're not going to feel the difference. And I don't know, maybe you can have a toggle for like, I don't know, the super fast version where you disable those checks, but it works. On that point, I will probably do the same for Zine. Like until I figure out how to have Super HTML run on templated code, which I might decide it's just a bad idea at the end of the day. I mean, it's cool to be able to pull that off, but I might conclude it's a bad idea. I will also add a Super HTML check pass to Zine on the final output. It takes like nanoseconds, so shouldn't be a problem, especially if you keep everything in memory. Like in the case of Zine, I collected the output in memory and then I flush it to a file only if everything succeeds, because there might be a bunch of other failures everywhere else in the pipeline, and I don't want to do partial outputs. So if you have the whole thing in memory, it's gonna be instant. It's gonna be pretty much instant. Cool. Yeah, good luck with your language. Also, I think that if you write your own parser, you can also start appreciating some aspects of the design where it's better or worse to do certain things based on how ambiguous the parsing becomes in the presence of syntax errors, for example. So I think it's worth exploring it. But if you want HTML compliance, which is not a bad thing to have, yeah, do it after the fact. Do it snippet by snippet, or at least you know what, the level of granularity, the better the perfect level of granularity. I don't know what that would be. Maybe no granularity at all is the best move. Like you just compute the final complete HTML file and then you just parse that one. Because you will potentially miss out on some validation if you only look at tiny pieces, because you miss out on their nesting validation, on validating their nesting, but how they nest into one another. But then you will need a way of recognizing which offset comes from. You will need to basically be able. Ideally, you don't strictly have to. You could you could let the user have leave it to the user to figure that out, which is not the optimal user experience, but it is a reasonable user experience still. Where you just say, look, the generated output has this thing that is wrong, and then it's up to the user to figure out where in the source code that was. They will be able to do that. The better way would be that you somehow keep track of which sections, which byte offsets in the output string correspond to which, I don't know what to call it, let's call it each widget, each model in the source code, and then you point to the user at the source code. But you can pull it off. I'm sure that you will be able to pull it off. In any case, good question. And yeah, good luck to you. So let's see. For all the following cases, the payload is the byte offset at which the Ziggy document starts after the opening delimiter, which might or might not be the same as the closing delimiter. And since it's on you to parse it, it makes no difference. Maybe I should call this closing delimiter then. And delimiter. Closing delimiter. Okay. Alternatively, we could make this a struct. It's fine. Okay, so this is now entirely up to the user. We have an init function that sets the starting index depending on this. Line counting is, I don't know, it's going a little bit out of sync, but I think it's fine. We don't care. So this means that in AST, in parser, we do not have any logic, or do we? Well, we call init. Call init on the tokenizer, and we start our root node at the offset. Yep. Which actually can be simplified. It can just be p.tokenizer.idx. Simple as that. It doesn't have to be in a weird order. It doesn't need a trailing comma. You can go back to a single line. Okay, holy shit, this is so much nicer. That's good. That is so good. So now this thing, closing the limiter, is it's like the union. Let's take a look at the serializer. Because now the serializer is weird, because this is going to be closing the limiter. Let's see what the documentation says. Allows you to parse a Ziggy document embedded in another file like Super.NET HTML. Like Super.NET, for example. When set to anything other than none, meta.doc. Oh, there we go. That's where it flows. Okay. Okay. All right. I think it's fine. Okay, so these defaults to none. There's no init, right? There's just this serialized leaky, which you do .init. And what is this doing? This is setting in the tokenizer. Okay, so this is doing what we're now doing in the tokenizer itself. This is perfect. Okay. So this is all well and good. Now we need to change usage code though, for sure. So we have this test. Okay, how are we doing with testing? Also, why is this? I'm gonna exit this. Okay, how are we doing here? Syntax error recursion from enum 606. Oh shit. Well, what do you know? Okay. So she's gonna be 3. Excuse me. There we go. Okay, that she's gonna be 3 again. Okay, let's see, how are we doing? Switch must handle all possibilities. Tokenizer 116. Right, this becomes else. Honestly, the fact that we saved the entire payload of that thing is, you know what, it kind of sucks. I kind of wish this state would be not this guy, but would be just the enum. So std meta dot tag. Let's see what happens if we do this. Expected type U32 found, closing the limiter 118. Oh. Tag capture of non-inline prong. No, what? At field? No. Bro, what do you want from me? This is, okay, inline else. I don't know. Accepted item tag type found tokenizer closing the limiter AST91. Options. This is already a union. Okay. Accepted identifier from the EOD. We're going tokenizer, and I know why. It's because this function is using this syntax, and it's not doing init. Oh, this is going to be such a delightful foot gun for people. But there's nothing we can do to make it nicer. Actually, no, there is. You know what? You don't get any default value. That's how we make it work. Fuck you. No default value. Everything has to be specified. This is gonna break everything. Which is actually good. That's really what we wanted. Are you Indian? I am not Indian. Sorry. Sorry to disappoint. 2347. Wait, where are we? In Steam IST. Yeah, look at this. So we're making a Ziggy tokenizer on the fly. $23.91. There's no lines. Oh, this is a schema tokenizer. What am I? Oh my god! Like, I apologize, sir. I did not mean. Yeah, there we go. Here's the curl pit. $19.52. Do. Yeah, it's also because when I'm streaming, I keep font size up a lot compared to other times, so it feels super bad. But that's because I'm just making it nice for you guys. Do you work with Zig in your job? Mostly, yes. But I also work at the Zig Software Foundation, so that's my secret. Well, it's not a secret, but tokenizer 466. Okay, so what are we doing here? Tokenizer. Hello, Katham. I think it's a little bit too big. The other day there was a guy saying that if I ever wanted my stream to have any kind of success, I would need to immediately make font size significantly bigger than what it is right now, because otherwise it would be impossible for viewers to follow along with what I'm doing. So who should I listen to now? I'm confused. What should I do? I'm receiving inconsistent feedback. Okay, so we have 66 tests passing out of 66. So that's good. We can go back to AST and no, we can go back to diagnostic, deserializer, sorry. And we can start restoring tests, which should be mostly this. Actually, you know what? I feel optimistic. We're doing all of them at once. No way this can go wrong. No way this can go wrong. Okay. Ready? YOLO. There we go. 73 tests passing. What project is this? It's this. So if your question is how did I get a Zig job in general, yeah, there aren't that many, but there are some. If you mean how did I get a job at the Zig Software Foundation, like to be part of the core team, I was lucky, and I just happened to get involved with Zig early at the time where, precisely around the time where Andrew decided to get serious about Zig and start the Zig Software Foundation, and here I am. Okay, so we have this now working. Next step is integration with the LSP and all the CLI tools, because right now this is all I think it's broken right now. So I think this new system will allow us to make sure that everything works better. So document init Ziggy SuperMD. Okay, so here's what we were doing. Based on the language, we were saying, well, if it's Ziggy schema, then it's unreachable because it cannot be. Yeah. If it's Ziggy, then it's none. If it's SuperMD, it's dashes. But now it's on us to produce an offset after dashes. So this can't be like this anymore. This needs to be more complicated. And it does end with something like this. It does end with something like this. It's on us to find out offset and handle when we cannot compute offset. Yeah, ultimately, this is the better choice. Like, there's just no better way. I try to make it nicer, but it just does not work. Tokenization of the opening delimiter has to be up to the consumer. It cannot be done by the library itself, or rather it can, and it might work sometimes, but it's so limited. It's just a bad idea. Do you think right now is the right time to get into Zig because in future you might have jobs? I think that, so first of all, be aware that you're asking this question to the guy whose title is VP of Community at the Zig Software Foundation. So it's hard that you will hear probably from somebody that has this title, some kind of take like, oh, yeah, Zig is fine, but I don't know. Usually people that have this position, they will tend to be optimistic about the language. So with that being said, so my point is that I guess take everything with a grain of salt. But from my perspective, the Zig has pretty much succeeded as a language. We're not there yet, but I think that our path to becoming a mainstream language is pretty much laid in front of us. We just have to walk it. Terrible things could happen. I don't know. Somebody nukes the United States and half the core team dies, including Andrew. Then Zig will be in a bit of a shitty situation, in a shitty position. But unless something catastrophic like that happens, Zig will become a mainstream language. It will not become probably big like Python or JavaScript, but it will still become a big language. That said, it will take a while before we get there. It's still going to be a few years. There is an advantage in being an early mover. A niche language? No, more than a niche language. I think it will be a big language. But, Python and JavaScript are the biggest languages. So we're probably not going to get there, but we're still going to be a big language. Bigger than Ruby. There we go. Here's an idea. A language that is bigger than Ruby. That I think is realistic for us to achieve. So yeah, it will take a while. And being an early mover, like learning the language early and being already proficient with it when the time comes, will give you a payoff. Today, there's not many Zig jobs, but there are some. And being somebody who already knows how to do being a proficient Zig developer opens you the door to these very few jobs, but they exist and they are very interesting, generally speaking, and they tend to be also very well paying. So there is an advantage to be an early mover. In a sense, you could also say that startups like Tiger Beetle, for example, they're also kind of doing the same, but like not as an individual programmer, but as a company, as a product. They are early movers. They took on a ton of risk by investing in Zig, but their payoff is that, for example, Tiger Beetle now has a extremely solid project, extremely solid product that it would not have been as easy for them to achieve with another language. Still possible, but not as easy, and probably also not as enjoyable. But let's set that aside. So the same is true also as a software developer, but it is a bet. Like you're making a bet. So it's a little bit like gambling. So it's a risky investment that can give you a good payoff, but it is not guaranteed to do so. So I don't know. Keep that in mind. If you want a job tomorrow, and like if you want to learn Zig and you expect to be able to have a return on investment on that process in less than 5 years, I would say you're most likely not going to succeed. If you're fine with having a payoff in 5 years, in about 5 years or more, well, not that many more, like in about 5 years, then it might not be a wrong investment. That said, it is also true that if you do learn Zig, you will gain knowledge that will be useful for you also when you're using other languages. So the Zig as a language itself is not that complicated. Like as a language, it's gonna take you, I don't know, a month to learn the basics, 6 months to learn 80% of the things that there are to learn about the language itself. The quote-unquote problem with Zig is that it requires you to get out of the matrix. You know how Neo gets out of the matrix, and the first thing he says to Morpheus is, "Why do my eyes hurt?" And Morpheus says, "Well, dude, it's because you never use them." It's the same when you start programming Zig and before you only did JavaScript. What hurts is not learning Zig. What hurts is learning how your computer works. It's learning how to program, quote unquote, for real. That's the part that hurts. Pointers, memory management, OS APIs, virtual memory is still related to memory management. It's all that stuff that is hard. And that is all knowledge that is not specific to Zig whatsoever. So that to me doesn't even count as learning Zig. It just counts how to learn learning how to program, basically. Let's see. I would not recommend Zig if you want a job. However, you could pick up Zig, become a good programmer, and that would make you hireable. Still not Zig. That is good advice from Kantam. Agreed. Although I do think that if you learn Zig well and you do, if you learn how to program well and you do a good attempt at gambling, I think 5 years from now you could get a payoff. I think it's realistic. Not very likely. You would need to be a quote unquote high performer in the sense that you would be successful in you would need to start learning Zig, start learning lower level programming, and then you would discover that you actually really like this stuff. You really like making programs where you have full control over what's going on. And then if you happen to be in that position, then you will probably naturally invest time and effort into becoming more proficient in that. And 5 years from now, I think that you will have good chances to be somebody who will be able to get one of the probably still relatively few Zig jobs. Is there room in the world for Jai, Zig, and Odin, or do you think there can be only one? I think the world has space for an infinite amount of languages, right? What your question is not specifying is what level of adoption you are implying in to be necessary for a language to exist, right? Because I'll take the unsaid/undefined part of your question to a logical extreme. As long as we have storage on hard drives, you can have Jai, Zig, Odin, and a bunch of other languages stored on those hard drives, and plenty more, right? Bytes don't cost much. But then if your question is, well, but obviously the language being dead on a hard drive doesn't mean that it exists. Fine. Then if there is, I don't know, let's say there is one company using one of those languages, one company using Odin, and there's nothing else. It's only that company that uses Odin, and that's it. Is the language dead or alive? And I think it depends on your definition, right? So, so if your point is, what about languages that can become more popular than Ruby? I do not think that there's space for all languages in this new wave of systems programming languages. I don't think there's space for all of them to become more popular than Ruby. And by the way, I'm saying more popular than Ruby as a slightly imprecise way of saying mainstream success. Ruby is a language that has achieved mainstream success. It's a little bit on the decline recently. So I'm not talking about beating Python or JavaScript, which are like the top languages. I'm talking about beating a mainstream language that is now not at the very top anymore. So in that sense, no, I don't think there's going to be a lot of space. But regardless, how important it is that languages achieve that level of accomplishment, of like the level of popularity. I mean, it would be nice if Zig were more popular than it is today, but like, is it important that we achieve, I don't know, like global domination? Who cares? Does it matter if Facebook is using Zig or not? I don't know. I don't think it matters. Well, maybe, okay, for the VR stuff, maybe. But other than that, whatever. Google, does it matter if Google is using Zig or not? It doesn't. For two reasons. One, because 50% of those projects will be canceled by Monday anyway, and the other 50% is gonna fucking suck. It's gonna either fucking suck or it's gonna be software for ads. So who cares? I think that what's important, in my opinion, for Zig is that it needs to achieve a level of popularity that allows the community to, kind of reach the critical mass where you basically end up having a full ecosystem, an ecosystem where you have good chances of finding a good quality package for the majority of things, where you can find information about the language and like get help somewhat easily, that kind of stuff. And that ideally, it also ends up having Zig become a language that gets used for doing some actually good things, like things that are useful for humanity. Not necessarily, in an extremist sense, as in, I don't know, like unless somebody makes some kind of, I don't know, humanitarian thing in Zig, then it's not worth it. No, I'm fine with also something more mundane and less fundamental, like, I don't know, games. It's fine even if people make games with Zig, but I think it would be good, since we have invested a bunch of energy and time and resources into making Zig. It would be nice if we can grow it to a point where it starts yielding some return. It's kind of like growing a plant, right? You spend effort and time and energy and money growing a plant, and then you hope that it gives you fruits back, and so and that it doesn't die before it reaches the point where it makes fruit. That's kind of the idea. In practice, if you ask me, I do think that Zig will achieve Ruby level popularity. But like, is that would I consider that a goal for me? Not really, to be honest. I do think that it's going to happen, but it's not what I optimize for personally, and I don't think that's what anybody in the core team optimizes for, really. I think it's more like that I expect it to be a natural consequence of our work more than something that we're aiming for. That's it. Learning Zig is useful even if you don't find work in it immediately. I think that is true. In my opinion, I think Zig will displace a lot of Rust for low-level stuff. I think we'll displace some, but personally, more than Rust, I think that the languages that we're going to eat the lunch of is more going to be C++ and Go. In this sense, I think that C++ has... I think that's the one big problem with C++ is not C++ itself. Or rather, it's like the fact that C++ is a victim, quote unquote, of its own success. There are plenty of ecosystems where C++ is the only realistic option. In game dev, a lot of people just do C++ and there's no other alternative, right? I mean, on paper there are alternatives, but realistically speaking, the only mainstream enough, successful enough, well supported enough option is C++. And the problem with that is that when an entire domain, and games is just one. I'm sure there are like multiple domains that are dominated by C++. And this is the problem, because if C++ is the only option, then that means that there are like a ton of people who do not like C++, who cannot make C++ work as a tool for them, who are forced to do C++. And so those, I think, are the people that will jump at the first opportunity to do Zig, because they cannot switch domain, or rather, I don't know, like maybe they can, but they don't want to, obviously. If you've been a game dev or a whatever dev for your entire life, you're not gonna pivot entirely. You're not gonna do a 180 pivot tomorrow just so you can change language. Although, actually, you know what? I could see this happen for people that really just dislike C++ enough. I would do it myself, although I probably wouldn't get myself in a position to have done C++ for 20 years in the first place. So these people will definitely be interested in an alternative to C++ in their domain that isn't fucking C++. Which, again, this doesn't say, what I just said doesn't say anything about whether C++ is good or bad. Because the point is that for some people, C++ will work out nicely. They will be able to use it for extremely successfully, and that's great. But there's also a lot of people for whom C++ just does not click. It does not work. I'm one of those people. So they will be the ones that will be interested in Zig. As for Go, I think that Go is also going to be another language that we're going to quote unquote eat the lunch of. Because I do think that there is I think there are some philosophical similarities between Go and Zig. And I think that in many ways, Zig is just a better Go. I like Go, but if Zig had a robust web stack, or like the last time that I used Go, I haven't used Go in a while, but the last time that I used Go, and that I will probably use Go, I don't know, in the future, it's gonna be for web stuff. But every time I went back to Go after starting with Zig, man, it's so painful. Like try, the fact that error handling, try is missing, error handling is missing, defer works in a weird way. There is no error defer. Like there are so many stupid things in Go that you realize you can just do without, but also without completely losing the appeal for simplicity that I think you still get from Zig. And I think this is going to be especially true now that Go is adding generics and like kind of going down the path of making itself more complicated than it was before, which I personally do not like at all. So couple that with the fact that now we're about to have a kick-ass async IO story. I think that there will be a good amount of people who will be able to transfer the things that they like to do in Go to Zig, and also will get an opportunity to refine their understanding because there is no garbage collector anymore. And now you can still do certain things that you were able to do with Go, but now you're kind of forced to face, whether something is on the stack, on the heap. What do you do about memory management, that kind of stuff. So I think it's gonna be cool. I think Zig is on an entirely different level than Jai and Odin. Zig is going places. Well, the fact that Zig is public, well, I mean the two. I think there are like two key differentiators, right, between Zig and these other two languages. Odin, as far as I'm aware, doesn't have the resources that are behind Zig. So as far as you know, the creator works at a company that uses Odin, so he can spend his time, part of his job, part of his work hours working on the language, which is nice. He might also be getting help from somebody else. I'm guessing he's not developing it entirely solo. But that's it. That is different than having a nonprofit organization with a few full-time people working on it, plus other people that work contract hours. That does make a big difference in terms of how much you can invest in development of the language. And Jai, I guess in some ways you could argue it's in a similar position as Odin, because it's another language that is being developed as a company and being used as the company. They're making a game with it. I believe there are more resources invested in it than when it comes to Odin, because I believe that Jonathan Blow in the past had a team of people working on the compiler. Then he fired all of them. He sued some of them. It's like, I don't know, just Jonathan Blow things. And then did he hire new ones to work on the language? Well, at least one, yes, right? There's Raul, who sometimes live streams on Twitch. I haven't seen his stream in a while, but I believe he still does it. Although I don't know if he's live streaming working on the compiler itself nowadays. So there's at least one other person working on the compiler, probably more. So he is able to invest more. But I think the problem with Jai is that like in a sense, a programming language is one of the most social things that you can make in the world of technology. Like software is a form of communication between humans in a sense. Like you, the creator of the software, put behavior into the software and somebody else experiences whatever it is that you put in your program, which does, in my opinion, constitute as a form of communication, even though it's not like real time. Or, you know what, maybe in some programs it is real time, but generally it's not real time, but it still counts, in my opinion. A programming language is, well, it's a language, and not the same as a natural language, but it is, as like all languages are, it is a series of ideas that are shared by a group of people that shape their behavior. And you see that reflected in, for example, ecosystems that create themselves around a programming language, an ecosystem of packages, an ecosystem of editors, tooling of various kind, right? The entire ecosystem. So Zig has one of those things going on, right? The Zig ecosystem has, I don't know, well, the compiler itself, it has Ghosty Terminal Emulator, Bun, Tiger Beetle, ZML, Zine, my own project, my own JSON replacement. These later ones, they're smaller things, but still they do exist. Zig Up from Johnny Marler, Flow, the Flow text editor from Neurosite. So all these things exist in the Zig ecosystem, plus packages, right? So we have Zite from Rocco Rager. We have ZG from Dude the Builder, which then I forget the name of the latest one, but like the whole lineage of Unicode handling libraries that was designed with a specific perspective in mind. All these things do exist. And so a programming language is a very social thing. Jai is being developed in isolation. It's not open source. Jonathan Blow has said that he will open source it, hopefully. Until he does, he's not forced to. So you cannot say for certain that that will happen, just so that we're clear. Which also means that my point is that, how can I say? My point is not that I want to say that I think that he will not do it. And that's not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that until he does it, or he signs some kind of contract that says that he will do it, until that happens, he still has the option to walk back previous statements. So if he has said in the past that he will open source Jai, but if he tomorrow changes his mind and decides to not open source Jai anymore, he can do it. And I don't know, maybe you can decide to call him names for taking back his word, but it's still under it's still a thing that is in his power. And I mean, changing his mind is changing one's mind is a legitimate thing to do. So while I myself wouldn't love if we were to make that decision, it would still be a legitimate decision to make. So until Jai is open source, you cannot take for granted that it will become open source. If it doesn't become open source, Jesus, good fucking luck. In terms of adoption, I mean. But then if it does, then it means that Jai will have one way or another to figure out how to exist in, how to make the open source development model work, which doesn't mean that they have to accept PRs. They might decide to not accept PRs, for example. Well, I'm saying this because for those who don't know, Jonathan Blow has spoken in the past about being just against open source in general, the development model of open source, and he doesn't want to interact with the rabble. Like there's just a little hint of elitism in some of the things that he says, occasionally, just a tiny smidge. And so the problem is that they will have to learn how to face the public as a project, and whether they will do that successfully or not is completely unknown. And the fact that they have decided to never cross that line, they decided to never basically take that test in the past, I don't know, makes me a little bit worried that they might end up fumbling that part completely. So, and in the meantime, the fact is while they have decided to pull themselves away from open source development because it's, I don't know, bad and emasculating and whatnot. By the way, I'm paraphrasing, but these are like some silly arguments that Jonathan Blow has made about open source development. The point is that in the meantime, Zig has been able to capitalize on it a lot. Like, another reason why Zig is successful is not only because we have a financial system, a financial structure that allows us to invest time into developing Zig more than the other languages. Although, you know what, Jai, you know what, maybe Jai has a bigger budget than Zig. I don't know. I actually genuinely don't know. But in any case, we definitely have, I think, a bigger budget than Odin. But Jai also has the problem that by not going open source early, it has missed out on all potentially interesting open source contributions that we did capture. So to give you one example, everything in std.crypto in the Zig standard library has been written by Frank Denis, Jedi Sector 1, the creator of libsodium, who maybe some of you might, if anybody here has been at, for example, the Zigtoberfest in Munich, Frank was present. And his contribution is like, if you were to put a price tag on it, his contributions like would come up to a probably very serious number of dollars if that had to be work done by somebody who either had to learn that stuff plus making all the mistakes in the meantime, or if that had to be something that Frank charged us for. Instead, he's been doing all this work for free because it's an open source project. Probably, actually, I don't know the entirety of his motivations, but I think it's a reasonable guess to say that part of why he's doing it for free is because Zig is an open source project. And so in general, this thing that I'm describing right now, I call it the contributor poker. The thing is, contributors in open source can be, there's this thing that sometimes people say where they say, I don't want to accept a PR for this because reviewing the PR is going to be more work than doing the work myself. That is absolutely true. That is very often true for a lot of things. The problem, the thing that is missing in that perspective, the key thing that is missing in that perspective is that if you take time to mentor contributors to the point where they become very proficient, then you can get a lot of return in your investment. Initially, teaching a new contributor how to contribute correctly will take you more energy than just doing the work yourself, pretty much almost every single time. But you can teach contributors. Not everyone will learn, will as successful as anybody else. Some will be more, some will be less successful, but some will be extremely successful. And it's poker. It's literally poker. You decide on which contributor to bet on, and you play your chips, and you see what the cards end up being. And if you do it correctly, you can get quote unquote rich, as in you can get a good number of contributors who really do a really good job, and you get that also for free. So these are all things that are part of Zig's success. And these other projects, they're missing at least one of these things that we're doing. There's more, but I would say these are the big ones, and that is what makes a difference. Turns out that there's like a lot of things that you need to get right that aren't just the, pure technological aspect of software development. I didn't try Zig yet, but I can see it as a very nice thing for CLI tools utilities and go with Go for web-based things. Today, this is certainly true. I think in the future, Zig will become a more compelling option for web as well than it is today. And then whether you want to pick Zig or Go, it will depend on a variety of factors, but we're going to become more compelling than we are today, significantly so. I can promise you that. Let me put it this way. I would not say that we will ever get to a point where you should choose Zig over Go no matter what. I don't think this will ever happen, but I can promise you that fairly soon. So yeah, the time scale is not days, it's not months, it's probably a handful of years, couple of years. But I can promise you that if you know Zig well, you will have no reason to use any other language for doing web stuff. Because your knowledge of Zig, with your knowledge of Zig, you will be able to do any kind of web thing and not regret it one bit, not regret not being able to use Go one bit. Keep in mind, though, that there's a clear distinction, right? The idea is you already know Zig, thus you have no reason to go to another language for web development, which is different than you want to do web development, thus you go to Zig or another language. It's different. And so I already don't really switch much away from Zig anymore. I will still switch from it for web stuff, but this is not going to last long. I used to really love C++. Oh, neurosite. But Zig has broken me. C++ is just completely obsolete now. Zig is just always a better option. If not Zig, then maybe Rust, but there is just no reason to write a new project in C++ at all. Oh, man. Hello. Hello. Why is it important for a language to be open source? Well, some of what I just described is partially an answer to your question, as in if your language is open source, you can attract contributions that you would otherwise not attract or you would have to pay for. And the cost for certain things, if you had to really pay for it, it would be astronomical compared to what you would be able to get for free in an open source effort. Case in point, Frank Denis' contributions to std.crypto. By the way, for people, for the kids in chat, std.crypto is not like blockchain stuff. std.crypto is cryptography primitives, which also get used in crypto coin stuff, in blockchain stuff, but it's not that. It's more fundamental. So this already alone is a very good motivation. But on top of that, people don't want to pay for stuff. Like the age of paid for compilers is gone. People like you have, I would argue that you have almost no chance of success of any form of adoption. Like, never mind beating Ruby. You have close to no chance of ever getting any adoption for your compiler in your language if it's not open source. What was the last non-open source programming language that has existed that was successful? Like, even the ones that started open, the closed source became open source. Like even the quintessential one, C#. C# became open source a while ago. And also because it makes sense, right? Like, if you have, let's say that you make a language that is not open source and you make even a decent one, it's good. It's on par to other open source alternatives. Why would I choose your closed source stuff if it is comparable to other open source alternatives? Why should I choose something that I cannot see the source code of, that if you go out of business, I wouldn't be able to replace nor continue developing, that you might decide tomorrow to charge me for? I just want to point out that free is not open source. Okay. Well, the idea is, if it is open source, it is true that it could be open source and then you also pay for. But wait, your question was whether it has to be open source. So if it is closed source, chances are that you have to pay for it, right? If your point is, what if the language is closed source but then free? Sure, that's better than the argument where you charge me a license to use your language doesn't count. Um, he's talking about the RMS free versus open source argument. I don't know. Then maybe I'm missing something out. Sorry, maybe I'm missing something. Go is likely always going to be better when you have lots of juniors working on the project, literally designed for this. Yeah. Look, I still think that people are being a little bit unfair to that guy for that quote. Anyway, fine. Closing Index is now up to date with Ziggy's operation well. Thank you very much on your side. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So okay, so my point is that you don't make it open source. If it's not open source, then maybe you don't charge me today, but you can charge me tomorrow. The only thing that guarantees that you cannot be charged money tomorrow to use it and continue developing it is open source. Or, well, if you want to be technical, maybe it's not necessarily strictly open source because free software licenses do that as well. But the point is, it's those families of licenses that guarantee this. The same is true for open source. Usually, the license is tied to a version. Well, the license, given that it is a form of copyright, is certainly tied to a specific version, a specific output. Sure, and a company could change license to a project and stop developing and stop, take it closed source the next day for the next version for sure. But there are two aspects to it that are still critical. One, they cannot stop you from taking the last open source version and continuing developing the fork and give that fork to other people. Second, relicensing is something that can be done trivially if the open source project has always been basically written by, roughly speaking, a single party. Like the majority of the code is from employees of the company, which means the company itself, because usually the copyright lies with the company, not with individuals. But anyway, if there is pretty much one contributor to the project, then yes, that one contributor can take the code and make it private, but make it proprietary. But if a project like Zig, for example, has many contributors, it's pretty much impossible to change license to it. It is possible on paper, but you need to get a big number of people to agree, or you need to take their code out, and the feasibility of doing that move becomes exponentially more unlikely the more contributors you have. By the way, I wrote on this subject the good parts of open source. This is, by the way, related to a very funny story, specifically about a company that had a product that was available for free, where you could see the code, but they did not give you an open source license. You will not believe what happened next. You can learn that in a blog post. Okay, so we have to compute this offset. How do we do this? I think we can do that with the Ziggy tokenizer at this point. I think that for our purposes, yeah. Do I have a tokenizer? I do. Ziggy.tokenizer. Oh, interesting. Oh, now with plus dashes, I need to specify the offset. That is interesting. Previously, I could hack it. Now it's complicated. Ah, that is interesting. Truly interesting, actually. Okay, let's do it this way. Dash is 0. And then we do const start equals t.next. Source true. Actually, source. Do we have source? Yeah, we do. Okay, we switch start now. Start.tag. That can be EOD. If we found an EOD, that is success. So we do this. Actually, take this out. Replace with a comma. Okay. And dashes is going to be start.lock.end. If we see an EOF, that's an empty document. Well, fuck. What do we do if we see an empty document? What do we do if we see an empty document? We kind of want an empty AST. We can start at 0. But I think the problem is that, oh, you know what is interesting? Oh, here's what is interesting. We, in the current implementation, we do not demand in the Ziggy parser that the EOD, the final delimiter is present. Maybe this will work out. So then we break with 0. We break with 0. And what if there is something else? What in the presence of a syntax error? I guess we do it anyway. Something like this. We can also take out break BLK and move it out. Okay, let's see what happens now. I think this is still gonna crash though. Because it crashed before, and I think this is not gonna change. The equation of enum. FMT 200. Oh yes, about that. We also need to fix the CLI tool for that. It is fair. So FMT super MD dashes. Well, we need to do this basically. And this becomes like this. Okay. AC823. Render comments. Okay, so we build now. And it works. It complains. Unexpected token. Holy shit. It complains 3 times about this unexpected token. I think that's maybe a little bit too much. This is complaining a little bit too much about unexpected token. But it works. It works. Okay, what about an empty file? We didn't crash anything, so empty file is fine, and it doesn't complain. That's fine. There we go. This does fail though. Holy shit. What did we hit? Current location end greater than current location start in doing up. How is this happening? Oh, I actually don't know because we had an EOF. Okay, this is worth investigating. I'm gonna take a very quick break, but this is definitely worth investigating. We obviously need to at least make sure that the language server doesn't crash on stuff like empty files, or like it shouldn't crash as you're writing out the goddamn file. So we need to fix at least that part. I'll be right back. I'm back. Okay. Where are we crashing? Where are you crashing, man? So AST 625, the lightful assertion bursts. We're trying to go up from something, and that something has that something has our current token end is greater than or equal. Sorry, is not greater than or equal than the current location start. So this is the current node that we're looking at. So this is not a statement about the current token. Right, this is a node. Yeah. So the current node ends before it begins. Well, let's take a look at the current node. Oh, this must become a std.log.debug. Start 3 and 2. Uh-oh. Parent index 0, next index 0, tag is root. Well, there you have it. Why do we think that end is 2? Why do we think that end is true? So here's how it works. Start is indeed 3 because that is what we pass down. And is undefined at this moment in time. We consume. This should give us an EOF. This should definitely give us an EOF. And current is empty. How do we know if current is empty? We know that it is empty because we're centered on the last node. Okay. This is also true. So we enter here and we say, what is the tag of the current token? Is it an identifier? No, it's EOF or EOD. And so we say that the current node location end is the current token location end. Wait, are we fucking up the coordinates of the EOF node token? We actually don't know if it's an EOF 100%, but it should be an EOF. It is an EOF. It starts at 2 and ends at 3. So why in the flying fuck do we have root set to end at 2? Wait. I was about to say, wait, are we doing the dump down here? No. It's finalized then. So that means that here. Oh. Yeah. So here we are setting the end thing, and then we are finalizing. But finalizing must be overriding shit. Yeah, look at this. Yeah, look at this. Yeah, look at this. God fucking damn it. So I think this is fine. Except for the root node, maybe? This is so the order in this in which this is written kind of implies that we are trying to close the root node as well. I would say this. I think we should do it like this. Like we go through this process if we are not already centered on node 0. If we are, we should not go through this process. I don't know. I don't know if this is going to be super correct, but at least it's going to be correct enough to fix this thing. Okay, so far so good. So far so good. Sending 0 errors. That is actually correct because we don't have a schema. So we don't have a schema, but what is an empty file? Well, or rather, an empty file being not an error. I think maybe that is fine. But what does this mean? Is an empty Ziggy file a valid file? What does that encode? I guess you could argue that an empty file would be compatible with a struct that has a top level struct that omits curlies and that has all fields with default values. It would be compatible with that. So, yes, an empty file is a valid Ziggy document against that schema in a sense. Okay, and if we put a dot, then our expected token, foo. So this is compatible. This works because that's a Ziggy document that only contains a oh shit! Where did my delimiter go? Fuck. Wait, are we nuking? Okay, we're just nuking the end delimiter. That's not good. Also, why was the syntax highlighting all fucked up? Well, I don't know. Three-seater things. Wait. Oh, I was about to say, why are we... Oh, no. Well, I mean, this is still going, so we need to restart the LSP. Oh, no. Huh. So, we have an infinite loop in our hands. Parent index 1, next index 0. Array element. This is interesting because this is the print that we added just now. In up. Well, actually, sorry, no, this was not printing up. This was printing the... No, wait, what the fuck? Yeah, this is it. Parent index this. Huh. There's a missing value with a suspicious parent value. Add child missing value. This is literally the only point where we do add child missing value. How in the heck do we fuck up its parent ID? If it's like the current value. Okay, that is a funny problem. This also, maybe is the kind of problem that deserves a going through a debugger and like a breakpoint. I think this really deserves a debugger. So Ziggy fmt content slash indexsmd missing following value 26. How do we end up in an infinite loop in here then? How did we end up? Also, my LSP is broken somehow. broken pipe. LSP formatting failure requires a one-time out. Yeah. Oh, there you go. Language server exited. It happened again. But this should not be a problem, right? Because this should this should be trying to close the array over this token, and it should still be that this token start is past the end of this thing. So okay, we need to put some printing back because I really don't get what's going on. Or rather, we need to look at the up stuff. Wait, is that not in up? 6 to 7. Oh, it's somewhere else then. It's a different up. Oh, wait a second. Oh, I'm an idiot. It's not. It is up. I'm just an idiot. I'm just an idiot. So up current integer. Up current integer. Okay, so this is just normal going up. I'm guessing the final going up starts from here because it goes from, or maybe even here. Current is tag union, which does end, and we see an end of document. Oh, up is trying to close all nodes, and it doesn't even know if the current node has been closed or not. So it overrides whatever closing there was. So this is going to change end to 18, but I guess this is fine. This is going to, then it goes up to array element, starts at 9. It's going to end now at 18. Then there is a missing value. There's a missing value? We're going up from an array element to a missing value to an array element again. This array element starts at 18. I think there's a place where we forgot to account for EOD/EOF in the array handling code. Because I think we get to the array, we're expecting to see a comma, we don't see a comma, we expect to see a closing thing, but we don't. And I think that makes us attempt to discard this thing or like do some fucked up thing in a way that makes no sense. So let's take a look at the array parsing code because I think that it might contain some hints. Okay, array. We pick the next token. Pick token. If we are on a comma, we pick. Otherwise, we look at the current token. If the current token is a right square bracket, we consume the comma. We close the current node and we go up. Life goes on. Okay. This is the case where basically this fails because the next token is not a right square bracket, but it's an EOD. So we say, if current is not empty and the tag is not a comma, then we complain, which should be an error that we put here. Yes, we don't see it because the whole thing blows up, but we should be complaining about a missing comma there. Maybe. We skip over the comma, wait a child array element, and then we begin value. Yeah, this is a bad idea. We should not be doing this. I think what we should say is that here, else. Maybe we should switch on this. Something like this. We do this thing if it's a right square bracket. If it's an EOD EOF, we do this. We go up and we return p.finalize. And we should return an error. Sorry, well, append an error before we do this. Let's see how this goes. Here we go. Okay, I don't know. Hopefully we don't loop forever anymore. Now we still have this problem. Why are we eating the last thing? God damn it, man. So when we ran there, what are we doing wrong? I don't get it. Oh, wait. Wait, this might be tied to what I just did. Yeah, no, this is not end. This is start. Okay. Well, shit. I think the problem is that we're ending the document in the wrong position. I think this is finalized. The problem is if the current token tag is EOF or EOD, great. Oh, so we didn't even have to do. Well, I mean, this is a nicer error message, I guess. So here we keep doing unexpected token. Oh, we complain that there's an unexpected token there. No, this is actually good. This is actually definitely good. Yes. Then node index is different than 0. We do keep going up doing this. I think we cannot do this, I think. Yeah, this works. But this has trouble when it's empty, right? Yeah, because this trips this. The problem is that in this case, start 2 and 3. I think this EOF start location is wrong. You know what? I think in the tokenizer code, I have a -1. It is wrong. Yep. Oh, man. This sucks. But this is the only... we cannot lie about this. Yeah, it's just so bad. I know why I did that. We fucked something else in the meantime. But this is really necessary. Unexpected token. Why is the second dash an unexpected token? Twice. Why is this a single dash not an unexpected token? Yeah, this is a bug in the tokenizer. All these corner cases are like, if the delimiter dashes and mem starts with dash dash dash, this is also wrong. Jesus Christ. So this is wrong, but fine. This is not what currently is a problem for us. The problem is that in the state number, we are fine with matching like 0 numbers. So somehow the check succeeds. Like, what the fuck? The thing is, this is all temporary code because we need to switch this out for JSON compliance, like with JSON compliant code. So I mean, this, you know what? I'm gonna ignore this for now. This is a JSON compliance problem. Okay, so this works. Okay, what do we want to do next? So I think that this is fine. We're missing, I think, check. But this is funny because we can do it. We can do something like this now. So if I do this, yeah. Okay, we get schema mismatch. Schema mismatch, missing field cooks, missing field buzz. Why are we pointing here though? We're pointing at the wrong location. That sucks. In top level structs, we should be pointing. We are by mistake including the EOD token into the document. That is an annoying thing that it's a thing that I didn't know I needed to be careful about, but that it turns out we need to be careful about. Or rather, we either include it every single time or we don't. We need to be consistent about it. And I think so far the best option seems to be excluding it, because technically it is not part of the document. So concerning our AST, the problem here is that in the struct parsing code, struct field braceless struct. Oh man, look at this. Yeah, look at this. Look at this shit. Lock.start. If it's a neof of our neod, it's lock.start, not lock.end. There we go. Correct. Go to definition doesn't work. Well, we need to fix that. Oh, it's cooks. Okay, so that works. I wonder where my syntax aligning went. What? That's not on me. That's the markdown to grammar. What the heck? Okay, it is. Well, okay, fine. Whatever. What? Okay, what is the next problem here? Yeah, what is got? Oh, so now I can go to definition. Wait, what? I guess I was doing go to definition on the wrong field or something. No definition found. Yeah. Okay, if I do it on bar, it works. Okay, so it's not broken. Well, this kind of this thing where there has to be a line for syntax aligning to work, like a line in the markdown side of things. It's so funny. But yep. Okay. We update check. We update Ziggy check. And we're kind of good, I think, when it comes to this work here. I think today I'm not gonna stream. I'm not gonna do a super long stream, so I'm just gonna finish that stuff, and then I'm gonna call it a day. Your site has updated the receiver stuff, which is delightful, and so that's gonna be the next thing that needs updating. I think we're gonna make a release of Zine with just the updated receiver grammars and stuff, and whatever update I have now pending. And we're gonna release that first so that we can update the Ziggy website, and then after that we attempt the more ambitious reintegration of new Ziggy into Zine. Also, to integrate Ziggy in Zine successfully, I think it's finally time that we start thinking about tackling type compatibility. So it's finally time that we start looking at the tooling, at the Ziggy tooling that you can use in your build pipelines to test if a Zig type matches a schema. Yup. It is. It is time. It is that time. Finally. It is that time indeed. Okay. So let's do it. So FMT has this stuff. So we have a new file type that we detect. Check should have something of that sort. Schema path. Oh, this guy doesn't even have a std in. You know what? Maybe we can. No, I want check to also work with the supermd files. So if the scheme is provided, we set it up. Also, here's another thing that I realized. The arena allocator should work off of page allocator, and I don't know why I'm not doing this. Okay. Check file valuable. That creates, here's the AST Ziggy stuff. Where are we doing detection? Ends with. This is annoying. FMT was much easier to adapt to this. Kind of want to do this. I'm thinking of copying the logic because it's convenient and so that I can just delete it entirely once we're done. Oh. I mean, this is it actually. Okay, it sucks that we had to copy paste so much code, but it also is going to be good for tearing it out. Okay, we Zig build. Ziggy check index.smd. 1 unexpected token. No, we fucked something up. Oh, because otherwise calls check file. Fuck. Maybe check file should branch inside of it. Then we do it twice. There we go. Assertion failure. We have an assertion that the file ends with .ziggy in here. Oh, definitely. I'm assuming that the assertion has to do with that, and it should be around here. Wait, what am I looking at? check SMD file valuable, check SMD file. Maybe we can avoid the same name stuff. Or no, we can do like this. Yeah. So that would work. And no, it's down here. I think at some point I do some like fucked up trick to avoid some work. Something like in search.schema. Yeah, in search.schema, I'm asserting the path ending .ziggy, I guess, or there you go. Should be fine also with .smd. Unable to find matching schema for document index smd. Well, okay, but if we do it from above, then it works. Schema mismatch. Yes, this is the problem. The fact that it doesn't work if you're in the same directory, but it's a separate thing. So, okay, with this we have updated basically all the tooling to support SMD. So that means that you can get schema validation and everything else. That means that if users do install the Ziggy stuff, they will get this feature, which is nice. The only piece that is missing in this whole story is that as it is right now, we cannot make this work with a WebAssembly blob. A WebAssembly build of the CLI tool, of the language server, will not be able to open files. Actually, you know what? I keep repeating this, but I actually don't know that for certain. I keep saying this, but I don't know for certain. You know what? That's a thing that we're going to have to try out. So, success. Bit by bit, I think the Zine ecosystem is going to become pretty respectable. Not quite there yet, but getting there. So, thank you all for hanging out. I hope you enjoyed I guess yet another dose of language server stuff. But yeah. So thank you all, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye. Thank you again.